Joining us is Dinesh D'Souza, a political documentarian. You know him from 2016 Obama's America and his latest film, which is available now, Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party. Dinesh, it's good to have you back on the show.
Hey, it's great to be on the show. If I may mention our DVD, the movie's out in DVD tomorrow, October 11th, so just urge people to look for it. It'll be out in stores everywhere and also obviously available for all kinds of digital download. Now,
it seems to me like we spoke with you in Cleveland at the RNC on the day that the film came out. Now we're talking to you the day before the DVD comes out. Are we going to hear from you at all in the next 2 years or when the next film comes out, will you call in?
No, I'll be happy to come on. This is obviously a very interesting political season.
Yeah.
And to put it mildly, and last night was a big night. I think that in a way, Trump salvaged his campaign, shifted the focus right back onto the issues, and showed Republicans how to throw a punch.
I did think that he won the debate as much as anybody could win what really was not a substantive debate. I think he did have her on the defensive most of the night, and I'm really glad that we just happened to coincidentally have you on today because my Twitter has been exploding since I commented on something Eric Holder tweeted today. I'm not sure if you actually saw the tweet or if somebody retweeted this for you, but Eric Holder had said, in America, we don't put our political prisoners, our political opponents in jail. And I said, you know, who might have something different to say about that? Dinesh D'Souza this afternoon, because you wound up in jail as a political opponent of the Obama administration.
Well, to be honest, I've lost track of Eric Holder. I mean, ever since the guy quit, I haven't heard about it. I kind of assume that he's head of some kind of reputable mafia organization somewhere because with all his government experience, he'd be invaluable to those guys. But quite seriously, no. I mean, I literally, when I saw that this morning, I laughed out loud because talk about a guy without a sense of irony.
Right. Yeah, he's really not very self-aware when it comes to what's happened in the last 8 years. Because in Hillary's America, it begins with you at a halfway house where you spent time for that conviction that obviously we could litigate again, but you wound up serving a little bit of time for that.
Well, you know, just to focus that and be serious about it for a minute. Look, I did break the law. I didn't mean to do it, but I did do it, and so I don't expect not to get a penalty. But all I do expect is that the penalty be proportionate to what I did and to make sure that other guys who did the same thing got the same punishment. And that's the point. No American in all of U.S. history has been locked up for doing what I did. I gave $20,000 of my own money. I didn't stand to gain in any way. There was no corruption involved. And so if you can find me another case where some guy got prosecuted and got sent to a confinement center for 8 months or thereabouts, I'll take it back. But otherwise, I'll continue to say, hey, you guys selectively prosecuted me. My real offense in your eyes was that I made a movie that made Obama look really bad and pretty much called him on the kind of guy that he is, predicted the things he's going to do, made him mad, and so he put the dogs like Eric Holder on me.
Well, in Hillary's America, what kind of things are you predicting for the next 4 years when she wins this election?
Well, we've been supplying a lot of the, I may say, intellectual capital that actually Trump has been drawing on. When he referred, for example, to Hillary giggling and chuckling about letting off this guy who raped a 12-year-old girl. In fact, that was kind of the moment, I think, that the whole tape issue disappeared. Hillary's face turned white, and the moderators quickly went to talk about Syria. But that issue is something that we treat in the film, and we play the audio tape of Hillary boasting about this. Very telling, and it's also very telling, of course, that that's a tape that people haven't heard, whereas they've been hearing about the Trump tape ad nauseum.
You're absolutely right. It's certainly that something that's open to interpretation, as is the Trump tape.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we're not faulting Hillary for defending the guy because people deserve a criminal defense, and so we're not blaming her for being his attorney. What we're blaming her for is the fact that she knew he was guilty. She thought it was funny that he passed a polygraph test, and she thought it was funny that he got off essentially with a slap on the wrist with, quote, time served. And this is for raping a 12-year-old girl. And Hillary was guilty in a sense of blaming the victim, namely saying, oh, this girl, she does fantasy. She has this sort of idea in her head that she should be with older men and sort of thing. So the very things that Hillary and feminism rails against, blaming the victim, presuming that the girl is to blame for being raped. This is a girl who was put into a coma. This is actually a window into the soul of Hillary Clinton, and the press knows that. That's why they won't play the tape, to let people make up their own mind.
We're talking with Dinesh D'Souza here. Dinesh, have you done any research into who has seen Hillary's America since it came out, 3 or 4 months ago? I'm curious as to whether or not you're attracting undecided voters or independents or people who may not have made up their mind about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, and whether or not this film is actually having an influence at all in this election.
Well, we've put 1.5 million people in the theater to see the movie. I would predict that the vast majority of those are conservatives and Republicans. Now, remember that this is a year in which it is important to unify the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's working out pretty well so far, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been a lot of dissent over Trump, and some of which has been his responsibility. And so this movie, I think, has helped to do that. Now, in DVD, I think it's more likely to reach some people who would not go to the theater but would be curious to see it. And quite frankly, Trump and the RNC are in a position to send DVDs of the movie to swing voters. They have their names, they have their addresses, so I can't do that, but they can. So in that sense, it's in their hands.
Yeah, and that would be something interesting for the party to do, to see if it would have any sort of influence in changing people's perceptions of Hillary Clinton. Although I think everybody, whether you're a Democrat right now or not, you've got a pretty negative opinion of Hillary Clinton, generally speaking. I mean, these are two of the most disliked candidates in American politics ever. It's amazing that these are the final two candidates that we have from which to choose.
Well, I think in that sense, both sides have been, discombobulated by this election. On the Democratic side, they had the alternative of Bernie, himself a kind of exotic bird. And it's interesting the Democrats at the end of the day decided to go with the ultimate insider, kind of knowing she was a crook, but nevertheless figuring that she was their crook. And then the Republicans decided to go with an outsider, an unknown. And some of the craziness that we have in this election on the Republican side is due to that. You have a guy who hasn't been in politics, hasn't been vetted. No one knows what he said 10 years ago. And so the Republicans, in that sense, have taken the risk of waiting to see whether some bombshell might drop that they were not anticipating.
Well, I think we all know that there are plenty of bombshells that could come out for Donald Trump, but for Trump supporters, I think a lot of people are buying into that as the price of admission to get the Donald Trump show. You just don't care, which amuses me that the evangelical Republican wing has decided just to throw their morality out the window to support a guy like Donald Trump. And I've got my own issues with Donald Trump. I certainly have even more issues with Hillary Clinton, but I just find it interesting how many Republicans are willing to look the other way to support Donald Trump.
Well, but let's explore that for a minute, though, because I'm not sure that they're actually looking the other way. They're actually responding to a very peculiar phenomenon of our time, which is that you have guys like Romney who are personally impeccable, but politically invertebrate and unbelievably ineffective, and campaign from the fetal position. When I think back to my years in American politics, I think of a guy like Bob Dole, who was a genuine war hero, and so was George H.W. Bush. And yet the guy who made the Marine salute was not either of those guys, but was Reagan. Now, Reagan was not a war hero. He was making war movies during World War II. So we have a paradox that the real hero is somehow not a good leader, and the guy who seems to be not a hero, or in Trump's case, very flawed, nevertheless shows, more punch and more courage and more zest, more willingness to engage the other side than we've seen from Republicans in a while. And I think that's the phenomenon that is getting people to rethink some of their traditional ways of looking at politics.
It's funny that you mentioned the invertebrated candidates like Mitt Romney, and certainly there's a lot of disdain towards Paul Ryan, and as there was with John Boehner. And instead we have a candidate who is the great negotiator that prides himself on his skill to negotiate. Negotiation, by its very nature, is a little bit of give and take. And to me, I don't find compromise a dirty word, but everybody on the two-party wing of the Republican Party for the last 8 years has said, no, you can't compromise. You got to hold your ground. And now we're going to get the guy who is all about compromise and negotiation. None of it makes any sense. The whole damn thing is crazy.
Yeah, no. I look, I mean, it's interesting that Hillary made a reference last night to Abraham Lincoln. Now, she couldn't be more opposite from Lincoln, and I think she was covering up her trademark duplicity by pretending like she was doing some kind of deep analysis of the Lincoln movie. But in reality, Lincoln, I think had that perfect balance of being deeply principled, but also recognizing the need to negotiate, but negotiate from strength and compromise in a way that brings more to your side than to the other side. So that's really the balance we're looking for, and I don't know if Trump represents it. I'm voting for Trump because I think that Trump represents a preferable alternative to Hillary, and in politics, this is a game that's played in teams, and there's no way to stop Hillary and the Democrats any other way than voting for Trump and the Republicans.
I am voting for the next 40 years of the United States based on Supreme Court justices, which will not be a vote for Hillary Clinton. If that on November 8th winds up being a vote for Donald Trump, so be it. As of right now, I'm hoping for a giant meteor, or I'll go into the polls drunk. I'm not really sure which. But that's what I'm basing my vote on. If I could vote for Mike Pence at the top of the ticket, I would do that in a heartbeat. But I think Donald Trump's performance in the debate last night was strong enough that talk about replacing him has vanished, at least for the next week and a half.
Yeah, it's funny we have to talk in those terms, and it does tell us what a surreal election we have. Look, I think part of this also is that we have seen with Obama and over the past 8 years a real degradation of our politics. This has happened across the board. When I was 20 years old and a young Reaganite, I would look up to these intellectual luminaries like Irving Kristol and William F. Buckley and Milton Friedman, Friedrich Hayek, Solzhenitsyn. All those figures have now vanished from the horizon, and we don't even have statesmen of the caliber of a Howard Baker or George Shultz. Well, where are those men? We seem to be living in one of those, you may almost say, low ebbs of American politics.
We don't even have statesmen of the caliber of Jerry Springer right now.
Yeah, it is frustrating and it is annoying, but it's not all Donald Trump's fault. Trump himself is the product of some bad forces that have been playing in American politics for a while now. And I think the media is also to blame for all this, because we have such a degraded media. I mean, there was a little glimpse of this when Martha Raddatz yesterday began to sort of play Hillary and start arguing with Trump. Trump makes the obvious point, if we're going to attack Mosul, should we actually be announcing this 3 months in advance? The bad guys are going to be all gone. And Martha jumps and goes, oh, wait a minute, there are all kinds of good reasons. My point is, Martha, I thought you were wearing the journalist hat. You're not exactly a paid person in the Hillary camp. Why are you debating Donald Trump?
Well, she might be. We'll find that in the next WikiLeaks talk. We're talking with Dinesh D'Souza, Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party. Check out this DVD tomorrow. You can also probably find it on pay-per-view. Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party. Dinesh D'Souza here on News Radio 1370 and now 92.9 FM.